Welcome. It's Michael Davis from Speaking. I'm getting used to this backward screen. Speaking CPR, in case you couldn't tell. I think that's a little bit of overkill, but that's neither here nor there. Welcome to our weekly Friday afternoon show, at least Friday where I am, Transformational Storytelling Insight. This week, we're going to answer an important question, which is why should anyone want to hear your story? I get this question every single week from somebody. And what they often say to me is, well, Michael, I haven't really done anything newsworthy. Well, here's an insight for you. Your stories are gold. And by the end of this short presentation today, you're going to understand why. Because you too may be thinking, Michael, I haven't done anything memorable. I haven't done anything newsworthy. Why would anyone want to hear my stories? I haven't won an Olympic gold medal. I haven't climbed the tallest mountains in the world, and I certainly haven't flown into space. This is precisely why your stories are valuable, because guess what? 99.99999% of the world has not won Olympic gold, climbed the highest mountains, or flown into space. What makes your stories valuable is if they're relatable. And where I learned this was from my mother. Several years ago, we were sitting down having lunch, and I've known my mom my whole life, come to think of it. And I knew a lot about her backstory. I was born in France, but as a baby, we came to the States, so I didn't grow up in the French experience. Well, one day, Mom's telling me about her experiences with her family. She was born into German-occupied France during World War II. So her earliest memories are of intense struggle. Whereas every day you and I wake up and probably ask the question, what are we going to eat today? Their question, my grandparents and my mom and her sister, their question was, are we going to eat today? And every morning, my grandparents would take my mom and her sister and they'd bundle them up and they'd walk about half a mile into the nearest village, hoping to find some kind of food. And if they were lucky, sometimes the German supply trucks would come in that were bringing in supplies to feed the German soldiers, and perhaps one of the bags that was being unloaded would spill a potato or two. And if they were lucky and were there at the right time, they scooped up those potatoes and they took them home, and that might be their meal for the day or the next day. Almost every evening, my grandparents had to take their two little girls in pitch black conditions and run them down a flight of steps across a big parking lot into a bomb shelter because the air raid sirens would go off. This happened night after night, week after week, month after month for 4 years. And my mom is telling me this story across from a lunch table in my fully air-conditioned home, which is about 1.5 miles from the closest 24-hour grocery store. I can't conceive of what my grandparents and my mother and my aunt went through in that time. And when she was done telling her story, I looked at her and I said, Ma, how did Grandma and Grandpa do that? How did you get through that ordeal? She looked at me for a long time and she said, well, honey, it's just what we did. And I didn't realize it right away, but it didn't take me long to understand. Mom did not see the power of her story. She lived it. She experienced it. And that's why you and I and everyone else cannot fathom, we cannot grasp the power of the experiences, the journey we've been on, the narrative we've created, because we lived it. And that's why I tell people frequently, that's why your stories are gold and why people need to hear them. And my admonition to you, if you take nothing else away from today, is stop thinking you don't have stories other people want to hear. You do. See, the reality is, if you've ever had financial troubles and overcome them, If you've ever had relationship issues, be it with children, getting stressed out, frustrated with little kids, maybe you've got some issues with adult children, maybe you're in a relationship, a business relationship strained, or a boss, or any kind of conflict with another person, or if you have just ever felt confused, conflicted, not knowing what to do, and you felt those barriers and yet you've overcome them, people want to hear your story. See, individuals in audiences walk in and they have a feeling of hopelessness many times. They may not show it on their face. They're wearing a mask, and I don't mean COVID mask. I mean an emotional mask, but they want help. And what they want to hear is your stories of struggle, strife, and setback, and then hear about success. And it needs to be presented in that order. You and I have heard the speaker, the salesperson, the leader who stands up and tells us just how great that person's life has been, right? Success after success. And we're thinking either BS or that's good for you, but you're special. See, what audiences want to hear is how you struggled. Maybe you needed some outside advice, but you took that advice, you overcame the challenge, and now you're living a better life because that's what they want. It's the old, I'll have what she's having syndrome. So that's why your stories are so powerful. Now, if you saw last week's video, we talked about creating a story file. Well, let's go a little deeper into that because some people say, well, how do I create a story file? Do I have to write out long paragraphs or write the story out? No. Here's your story file. And you can set this up on your phone, on your desktop, on an iPad, your laptop, wherever. Just start a file of some kind. And these are just 7 examples that I picked out of the air. These are the most common I see. Struggles you've had at work, with your career. Maybe you've set goals that you didn't accomplish, or if you did, it took a lot of work and time to overcome challenges to that. Your family, your friends, your financial issues, leisure problems, or maybe lack of leisure. That's your story file. Those are categories, and you can come up with others. I'd love to hear some if you've got one you're putting in your file and I don't have it listed here. But here's how it looks. And I know this is too small to read, but I did this purposely because these are just one quick line to remind me of the story. You don't need to write it out in your file. You know the story because you lived it. All I'm suggesting here is use this as a trigger. So, for example, I've got my desk incident in first grade as the top one. Mr. Dunaway being angry about having to choose an MVP for our football team. That was a great lesson in leadership. Valley Motors, a baseball team I played on as a kid, joining Toastmasters in 1994 to overcome my fear of speaking, bringing our dogs Sky and Riley into our lives. They've made a huge difference. So that's all I need. I know the story. And then when I'm putting together a speech or some kind of workshop or presentation, I know the points I want to make. When I know the point, I can go to the story that will best support it. So that's how you craft your story file. Right. Hopefully that has been helpful to you to understand why your stories are so valuable and why people need to hear them. Because if you're going through everyday experiences, then people want to hear what you did to overcome those everyday challenges. Now, before I leave you, what I would encourage you to do is work on your story file. That's a bit of a play work, or I would call that play instead of homework. But I'm going to ask a favor of you. I'm putting together a high impact storytelling program. This will be a 6-week course where we'll have a group of people come together, and we're putting the finishing touches on it. I want to make sure that we absolutely have every common question answered or struggle that people have with their stories. So if you're willing to do this, I would love it if you could put below this video, what are 2 questions that you would want answered if you were to invest in a storytelling program? Don't hold back. Don't edit it. Whatever of the 2 of the common problems or concerns or questions you've had about effective storytelling, let me know. Would love to hear those. In the meantime, if you would love to have a conversation about your storytelling, your presentations, I'm happy to set a time with you. If my clicker, oh, there we go. So yeah, if you'd like to set up a Zoom call, just go to this link. I'll put this underneath the video after we're done recording, or you can scan this QR code, set up a 20-minute call. Would love to talk with you. And as I always like to say in closing out these videos, you've got a story that people need to hear. You've got struggles, strife, and setbacks that people will relate to. And you've had successes after those difficulties that people want to achieve also. They need help. Get out there and share your stories and make a difference. I'll talk to you next Friday.